Hello and welcome back to another tutorial on powerpivot. This is Trisha Jagtiani, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you and highlight the difference between the Power Query and powerpivot. While both are of the powerful data analysis tool available in Excel, they are both used in different ways and for different kind of databases. In this tutorial, I'm also going to show you how you can combine the Power Query and Power Pivot together, or rather, work with both of them together to perform a powerful data analysis. So let's look into this. The first data that I have with me in the example sheet, I have the athlete ID and the athlete name of the athletes who are going to play in the Olympic games. What I also have is their gender, their discipline ID, and the country region abbreviations. I do not have their country name as such. I do not know which sport are they going to play. But I have another file with me which has this information readily available. I have the which sport they are going to play, and I also have the country for which they are going to play. But that's in a different file. So there are two different files that I have which I want to pick up the data from. In a normal scenario, if you're using Excel, you'll perform a VLOOKUP to perform this calculations or merging this to data and then performing a pivot table. But if you're using a Power Pivot, you do not have to perform any such formulas or functions. You can easily do that by combining data using Power Pivot. The first thing that you will have to do here is combine the two datas to merge them. However, if you want to merge the data, what we normally do is we use the Power Query method. While there is an option inside Power Pivot to also combine the data, you can see how it can be done. Go to Power Pivot tab, click on Manage, and it opens the Power Pivot window. Under the Power Pivot window, in your ribbon, you will see that there is an option, just like you have in the Excel data tab, to select or import the data from another files. In this window, you can see on the Home tab in the ribbon, from database, where you can pick up from the different databases, from the data services, web and all, you can pick up from the existing connections and from other sources. But they are very limited. The recommendation would be to actually use your Power Query method to perform or to import data into Excel first. So here you're going to use the Power Query. So when I say the difference is that the Power Query, when you are using Power Query, you import the data and then you can get it onto Excel spreadsheet and then perform your analysis. We will see how this is different from Power Pivot. To understand Power Query in detail, please go through my tutorials on Power Query as well. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to file and click on from workbook, because I have the file saved in one of the workbooks. So I'm going to go on to the workbook and browse through the place where I have that workbook saved. Once I get onto that place, I can select the file and click on import. As soon as I do that, Excel will start importing the data and will open up my Power Query editor window, which you are already aware how it looks. In this window, I am going to select the files which I want to import, and here I want to import two different files. So I'll say select multiple items and I'll select both the files. Once I've done that, I'll click on transform. Once I click on transform, it will open the Power Query editor window, and in the Power Query editor window, I can click on close and load. This will allow me to load it to my Excel spreadsheet which I have currently. As soon as I click on close and load, it will ask me close and load or close and load to. So I'm going to say close and load to. And here I will select only create connection. I do not want it to be saved on my any of my sheet on the file. So I'll say create only connection and add this data to data model and click on OK. This will add new queries onto my spreadsheet, and also it will not come on the spreadsheet, but it will show up as a separate data. And you can see that two different queries have been loading here. My previous query is also there, which I do not want, so I can delete that if I don't want it. These are the two queries that I'm going to keep it. This was previously loaded, so I do not want that, and I can use these two queries only. Once I have it, now what I can do is I can create a simple pivot table using this data which I had on my example sheet, and I can say from the table and the range. This will let take me to the pivot table window. I will say add this to data model and create it on a new sheet. This will add it to our data model and create a new pivot table for me. On the right, you will see that the pivot table fields, you can see my active data is the range where it has the athlete ID, athlete name, the region or the code that region code that I'm in or the abbreviation, gender and the discipline ID. As soon as I click on all, you can see all the files which can be linked to my data model is available here. And that is my country code, my event details, and the range. Now, the simplest way what I have to do is I need to check which country does each of the athletes belong. I can easily go on to the country abbreviation which I have here. I can say country, which so what I need to do is I need to have something in common here. So this is the country names that I have. What I need to check in this country, how many athletes are there from each of the countries. So I'm going to pick up the country and say athlete ID. I'll put it in the values. Now you can see clearly that there is a little bit, so you can see that there is some data that is occurring in the count of the athlete ID. It is very, very simple to now read how many people are belonging to each of the countries. If you go on to the data, there is a little bit of a problem you can definitely see. And that problem, why you can identify, is because each country cannot have the same number of athletes, plus the grand total also looks the same. Why is this happening? Because we have not created a relationship. You can also see on the right hand side, Excel automatically or the pivot table automatically shows up that you need to create a relationship here. Now, in order to create a relationship, you need to have some data in common in both the databases. So this is how you can actually work with your pivot, Power Pivot. While I'm going to show you the relationship method in the next tutorials, in this tutorial, just understand how is the Power Query and the Power Pivot linked. So this is how you can actually use a Power Query and then link the Power Pivot to your Power Query. Also, not necessary that you're going to do this only. You can also get your athlete names if you want under the countries that you have here. You can also link other things onto this data. Going on to all, you can also identify how many people in the event detail that you have here. You can also identify which event each one is playing for. That also can also be easily identified by using the relationship method in the pivot table field. So just look, it was so simple where you did not download any of your files into this file. You just got it from another spreadsheet, imported it in as a connection only. When you look into your database, you can see that it is downloaded as a connection only. And when you create a data model, it automatically allows you to pick up the data from any of these tables that you have. So combining data in a pivot table becomes very, very simple. Not only that, when you have a power pivot, you can actually perform different calculations, different measures, different KPIs, and how to detect the relationship can also be done. If you now go on to your power pivot window, you can see that there are three different uh, tabs, like just like the sheets that we have has been created here. And each of the tab is talking about the same data that is available in the your other file. So what is it doing is it is actually collating the data into this file, but that file or that data is saved at the back end, but it is not showing it on your file. This saves your space on, or this saves your file from becoming too heavy, but you can still perform your calculations using the pivot table. Also, if you look at the right hand side, there is an add column option where you can perform any kind of calculations like sum if, count if, or even the sum, average, or anything that you're looking at. You can also perform VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP inside the Power Pivot itself. If you want to do measures, you can do it like a sum if or a count if, which you can do at the end, and that will be considered as a function which will be added to the pivot table as a measure, which you can use it for performing any kind of data analysis when you're doing it in pivot table. We will see all these things when we are doing the advanced part of the power pivot. So here, what we have seen is how there are two different things, which is the two different analysis tool, which is the Power Query and the Power Pivot, how they can be linked together, how they are different from each other, but still they look similar and they can perform the data in a same method. Hope you found this tutorial useful, and keep watching for the next tutorial on how to create relationship between the two data that you have already collated in order to perform the further data analysis or advanced data analysis. Thank you for watching.